Today, college football lost one of the groundbreaking head coaches and one of the most dominant head coaches that they have seen in Nick Saban for Alabama. For several years, Nick Saban had been the top of the coaching in the college football, won several national championship SEC awards for coaching, and then also the AP College Coach of the Year awards. With that and all his accolades, we want to thank you, Nick Saban, first and foremost, for all your dedication to the sport and building athletes that we will be talking about here today. Of course, if you are a sports fan, hit that like, share with your sports family and friends. As always, hit that subscribe as we continue to grow the Patty community here. First and foremost, the first athlete that came out of the list that we could think of for Nick Saban and that Alabama team would have been good old Julio Jones. Has played for several teams, majority in Atlanta, but his career stats are 914 receiving with 1,400 targets. He has 13,703 yards and 66 touchdowns. Next on the list of Nick Saban athletes, you have Mark Ingram. Played majority of his career at the New Orleans Saints. He had a total of 8,111 yards with 65 touchdowns. Going to the defensive side of Nick Saban's teams that he built, you do have to think of Dante Hightower. Played every year with the New England Patriots. Throughout his career there, he had 353 solo tackles, 27 sacks, and 1 interception. With that, of course, Dante Hightower was a great athlete coming out of college football, and it showed as well on the field in New England. Also on this list, when we think of the defensive side, you cannot stop and think but Trayvon Diggs. He was drafted in 2020 in the second round, of course. He has been with Dallas ever since then. He's had a grand total of 146 tackles, 1 sack, 18 interceptions. 11 of those come just from 2021 season. He was working on setting a record. I do believe he fell just a few short of that. Next on that list, of course, as well. You have Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy was a running back for the Green Bay Packers for the majority of his career, with a grand total of 3,614 yards, 23 touchdowns on his career with the Packers. Of course, you got to think of Jalen Hurts when you think of Nick Saban, the quarterback for the Eagles, since he has been drafted back in 2020 in the second round. He has had a grand total as of this far into his career of 11,764 yards, 67 passing touchdowns, and then he has also had a few rushing touchdowns with that. Jalen Hurts' rushing attributes, he has had 41 rushing touchdowns with 2,503 yards. So when you come to running backs, you got to think of Najee Harris. Currently is on the Steelers for his first 3 years. He has had 3,269 yards with 22 touchdowns. He's also used as a receiving back with 866 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Devontae Smith, another great wide receiver, went in the first round, pick number 10 for the Philadelphia Eagles. In his career as of far, he has had 3,178 yards on 19 touchdowns. With that, also back to the defensive aspect, you got Patrick Surtain the second. Has been with the Denver Broncos. Was drafted back in 2021 in the first round by Denver. He has had 150 solo tackles, 0 sacks, 7 interceptions, and 1 touchdown on his career. With that as well, he is tied for 84th when it comes to solo tackles, and then 104th on the interception aspect for the Broncos. Another great wide receiver that has came out of Alabama is Jalen Waddle. In his career that he has been with the Dolphins for the last 3 years, since 2021, he has put up 251 receiving yards. When you think of Alabama wide receivers, you also got to mention Jalen Waddle in that conversation. He has had 3,385 yards with 18 touchdowns in his season, with the longest being for 84 yards. Jalen Waddle has been added to that Miami Dolphins team that is continuing to grow, so we can always see Jalen Waddle have huge improvement with his career from here on out. Jerry Jeudy for the Broncos was also drafted in the first round back in 2020. He has had 3,053 receiving yards on 11 touchdowns. I do believe Jerry Jeudy, the reason his numbers are a little lower than most that's came out of Alabama is just to a lot of injuries he's had. But he is back on the right track with having Russell Wilson. They've got a lot of good connections just this year once he did come back. So, of course, he will continue to pick up the pace as well. Also, with that coming out of Alabama, you did have Henry Ruggs, who only played 2 seasons in the NFL, had 921 yards and 4 total touchdowns. When you think of quarterbacks, you got to mention Tua Tagovailoa. He currently has 12,639 yards with a whopping 81 touchdowns. Tua's had a great 2 years in the Miami Dolphins offense. He was also a first-round pick in 2020. He has currently got his team into the playoffs this year. Going to continue to live out that Alabama-type offense and continue to push for a championship. Another big name running back is Josh Jacobs. He has had 5,545 yards in his 5 years that he has been with Oakland, with just 46 touchdowns, his longest rushing touchdown being about 86 total yards. He was another first-round pick back in 2019 to the Oakland Raiders. Defensive side, Quentin Williams was drafted back in 2019 in the first round to the New York Jets. He has been there ever since 2019. He has 157 solo tackles, 33 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 1 interception. And then in his career, he has only been in the league, of course, 5 years. He's gotten extremely better within the past 2-3 years. So, of course, you can continue to see great growth here as he gets back to that Alabama style of defense that he was used to. Calvin Ridley is another big name in the wide receiver aspect. He has a grand total in his career of 4,358 yards with 36 touchdowns. He was with Atlanta from 2018 to 2021, and he was picked up by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2023. Minkah Fitzpatrick has been in the league since 2018. He was a first-round pick as well. He was really drafted by Miami and finished out majority of his career, an active career in the Steelers franchise with 338 solo tackles and 19 interceptions with 4 total touchdowns. Fitzpatrick is also on that team with a good TJ Watt. So there's a lot of good players over there. That team, a tight end that was extremely good when he first came into the league back in 2017 was O.J. Howard. He was drafted to the Buccaneers. He had a average of 17 touchdowns throughout his career and 1,882 yards. He is currently a free agent who has been looking for a place since he was in Houston back in 2022. On the defensive side as well, you got to think of Marlon Humphreys, who has been with the Baltimore Ravens since he was drafted in 2017 in the first round. He has 303 solo tackles, 5.5 sacks, 13 interceptions, and has a average interception return yards of 84 yards. Amari Cooper, a great wide receiver for the Browns. He has set records there just this year. He was with Oakland when he first came in back in 2015. Got traded to Dallas and then got traded to the Browns this year. He has a grand total of 9,486 yards with 60 touchdowns. On the defensive aspect as well, you got to look at Clinton Dix, was a first round pick back in 2014. Played the majority of his career in Green Bay. Has 418 solo tackles, 5.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 16 interceptions with average of 212 yards, and 1 interception. C.J. Mosley is another defensive player that you got to think about when you think of Nick Saban and the defenses he has had. He had 674 solo tackles. He has 12 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, and 12 sacks on his career. The last one is King Henry himself. Since 2016 being drafted, he has been with the Tennessee Titans. He has 9,502 yards rushing with 90 touchdowns. His average yards was 99 throughout his career there. With that being said, Nick Saban has never had a losing season in his college football coaching career. That means from the day Nick Saban came in and started coaching, he had never been out of the playoffs, never missed a chance for a bowl game, always above 500. If you want to look at that, that is a huge accolade for 17 plus years. With that, you want to look at the most national titles that has been held by a head coach. You have Nick Saban. When you look at the most national titles held by a head coach in college football history, Nick Saban runs that pack there. Of course, he did win one with LSU. Of course, and you can see who the runners up there: Bear Bryant, Woody Hayes, and Bernie Behrman. Of course, 5-5, and so Nick Saban is the top of the college football league. And we said that we would break down his trophies and awards. He has 7 national championships, 6 with Alabama and 1 with LSU. He's a time SEC Coach of the Year, 297 career wins, 5th all time, and it's been a long 28 years of greatness. Of course, college football fans, you know how this is going to be a huge impact. We're going to see who can step into the shoes of Nick Saban and take Alabama back to what it was, or will Alabama trickle down the line and go back to what it was before Nick Saban came into the league. Of course, if you enjoy hanging out with us for our sports content, hit that subscribe button, become part of the community, and we will see y'all on the next one.